Hello, happy race day from Daytona International Speedway. Back with one more video before we get the race started. Tried to put one of these out last night, but technology wasn't interested in cooperating with me, so here we are, trying it again, take number 2 on race morning. It's a different vibe for sure on race morning. There's still a buzz around as you walk into the facility, and some of it's still pretty early. We are, well, let's see, it is just after 10 o'clock as I'm recording this. The race doesn't start until nearly 4, so there is some time, but already the fans are starting to show up, and there is an atmosphere, which is great. It's just different, as you would expect from years past. There's some fatigue as well because the Roar running right in front of the Rolex 24 this year, it gives the event a different vibe. And especially on the team side, they've been working out of these garages here at Daytona now for going on 2 weeks. And usually they're used to going back to the shops, working from home a little bit before packing back up and coming here. But the new condensed schedule has things a little bit different. It has something of a Le Mans vibe where you're there extra early, sometimes for the test day, certainly for scrutineering, and then the whole build-up to the race itself takes the better part of 2 weeks, if not longer, if you count the test day. So this is something along those lines, and I think in a normal year it would have been really, really cool. I know that IMSA had some things planned across the street at one Daytona where they were going to do a bunch of fan interaction. Obviously, this is not the year for that, and we understand it's difficult circumstances and different times, so we do our best and we make the most of what we're given. So, with all that said, we'll transition into Rolex 24 preview in just a second. First, I did want to mention yesterday's Michelin Pilot Challenge race, which had some elements of cruising around, getting to the finish, which you would expect in a 4-hour race. However, the final hour was full of fireworks, and it was interesting to see the AWA McLaren, Ori Fidani, and Kuno Wittmer able to pick up the win. The first series win, as a matter of fact, for Fidani, and a big breakthrough here at Daytona as far as the race goes for Kuno. He actually had, he qualified on pole, and that was his 4th pole in the series here at Daytona. Pretty amazing, but able to convert that to a win here this year. So congratulations to them. That McLaren seemed really, really fast, especially in a straight line, and that's something we saw in other championships last year, as well as here in IMSA, but certainly on the SRO side, the McLaren's 570S was a rocket ship at various places, especially places like Road America, I remember. So I saw some of the same things happening here. They had to come back from a penalty for avoidable contact earlier in the race, so it makes it all the more remarkable. Congratulations to them. Also had the TCR class, of course, which saw the JDC Miller Audi, Mikey Taylor, William Talley, and Chris Miller teaming up to get the win there. A great final restart from Mikey Taylor, and some of our listeners and viewers have pointed out that maybe Mikey got a bit of a jump, but I actually thought he gave a pretty compelling explanation in the post-race press conference when he talked about the fact that it was more catching the back of the GS field that hampered Ryan Eversley than any kind of shenanigans at the restart. Nevertheless, it was a good duel there between those two at the end of the race, and you can be the judge of whether or not Mikey got the jump, or if there is some merit to his point that the GS field kind of caught Ryan out a little bit. To be entirely honest, I was trying to write the race report, and I had my head down at the moment that was shown on television, if in fact it was shown on television, so I really didn't get a good look at it. So, like I said, you guys can be the judge of that. I did want to get to a little bit of news that came out as well this week with the much anticipated and hardly surprising announcement that this will be the final year for GT Le Mans in the WeatherTech Championship. That means no more of the beautiful GTE cars, which for good reason have been incredibly popular over the years. It's been one of the favorite classes of fans and drivers and media alike. It's also been a shell of its former self, especially starting last year when we lost the Porsches for a time, obviously no Fords. The new Corvette did something to bolster the class, but then the writing was on the wall as Porsche pulled out officially at the end of last season from GTLM factory capacity. There is a full season GTLM entry, but it's more or less a privateer team, Proton competition, running it on behalf of WeatherTech Racing. So not exactly the same kind of factory support that the Core Autosport team had a year ago and in years prior to that as well. So clearly the series and I should say the class was dying on the vine and something needed to be done. The obvious choice is to plug in GT3, and that's what IMSA has done with a GTD Pro class that comes online next year. As far as we understand it right now, there are no firm regulations in place. John Doonan has talked instead about putting a technical working group together, but the idea that they're starting with, at least, is to give factories a chance to fully back an effort, put factory drivers in, not need to worry about Pro-Am regulations, and just go without the confidential Michelin tires that we've seen in GTLM over the last few years. And as far as we know, the initial plan, at least, is on the same performance level as the normal GTD class, which will be retained in a Pro-Am format. All of that, I think, subject to review by this technical working group, but it seems like that is at least the jumping off point, and I think it's a good place to start. I would like to see the GTD Pro cars run on the same BOP, if for no other reason than just keep it nice and simple on the tech department. But also, I think we've seen it work in other races, SRO racing in particular at Bathurst or Spa, where you have different classes, but it's done by the driver ratings as opposed to an actual performance difference between them. And what you can end up with sometimes is an AM driver on a good day maybe puts in a great performance and can be on the overall podium or fight for an overall win. And I think that's actually something that would be enticing for a gentleman driver, knowing that they are on the same footing as the pros, but also have their own class to fight for. So we'll see what happens. I think, like I said, it's the confirmation of the inevitable. We saw this coming. It really was the only possible solution with GTE clearly untenable, at least here in the States for a little while. I think the writing is on the wall in Europe too, in ELMS and the WEC, but that will take a year or two more, I suspect, to try and sort itself out. So love to get your thoughts on that. Make sure you send them in on Twitter at Ryan Marine or on Instagram or in the comment section below. Curious what you think about the demise of GTLM and GTD Pro coming online in 2022. I also solicited predictions from you folks looking ahead to the Rolex 24 here this afternoon and into tomorrow. The first comes from Josh Fahey, who predicted that it will be a mess with P2 and P3, but he says, I hope it will not be. Well, Josh, I think you're probably onto something. The saving grace might be, last forecast I saw did not call for rain, and that probably is one of the good pieces of information here if you're looking for a cleaner race, especially overnight where it's due to be quite cold tonight, and tire temps are going to be something to talk about, especially for the prototypes. It takes them a little longer to get heat in the tires because they're not as big as the GT cars. So there, I think, will still be your fair share of chaos, but if it should rain, then, man, all bets are off, and it could really go circus music-esque at various times. So hopefully it doesn't come to that, but I do expect there will be a time or two where P2, but P3 more specifically, is going to pop up in maybe not the most flattering of ways. We will see. But I would also say it's not just those two classes. There are a few AM drivers in GT Daytona as well that I'm a little bit concerned about, looking at some of the pace we've seen thus far. We'll see. Hopefully everyone keeps it smart, keeps it safe, and the shiny side up, as they say. Zach Wenzel on Twitter with a couple predictions. He says Meyer-Shank Racing will win overall. Good driver lineup. I think certainly a good team with the pedigree. It's a good prediction. He says Austin Dillon drives counter race less than 3 times. I hope you guys have seen the video of Austin's faux pas from night practice a couple of nights ago, where he seemed to get a little bit lost and might have been pointed in the wrong direction for a while and got himself chastised by race control. Then he finally says LMP3 will pick up sponsorship from Tylenol and or Advil by hour 12 because of the headaches that they have caused. Very good, Zach. You might be onto something. Finally, Indy Nathan on Twitter says, can I project that someone will three-peat? There's a 43% chance, he says, since Wayne Taylor Racing, Kobayashi, and Van der Zande have been broken up. He says, I do think Wayne Taylor Racing wins again. That lineup is solid. All of the DPI lineups are solid. They are so good. I'd love to have more DPI cars, but 7 with these kinds of driver lineups, it's hard to complain. It's going to be a dogfight for the whole race, especially because it does appear at least. And boy, these could be famous last words, but it does appear that the BOP is pretty good, and I do think all three manufacturers will have a chance, depending on circumstances, of course. But we'll get to more of that in the predictions to come. As far as the three-peat goes, there are several different scenarios where this could happen, not just in DPI. For one thing, if Wayne Taylor Racing were to win again, that would be 3 in a row for the team. Presumably, it would be three in a row overall as well. That's only been done once by a team ever in the 59 years, including this year, of this event. Only Chip Ganassi Racing has won this race overall 3 times in a row. That was back in the Grand Am Daytona prototype era. So there is some history on the line for Wayne Taylor Racing if they can get it done here over the next 24 hours of racing. As far as Kobayashi and Van der Zande, both are going to have a very good chance. Their driver lineups and their teams are incredibly strong. I would look beyond DPI, though, because you also have Dragon Speed that could three-peat. They've won LMP2 the last couple of years. You have BMW Team RLL. They've won GTLM the last couple of years. And there's actually a chance for a four-peat when you think about it from the manufacturer perspective. Lamborghini has won 3 in a row in GT Daytona. They could win a 4th here today. So several different aspects of the three-peat or even a four-peat to think about, and there are others I'm probably overlooking here as well. So I think the prediction that someone, somewhere, in some capacity, will three-peat is probably a safe one. So good thoughts there from you, Indy Nathan, on Twitter. My predictions now. DPI, as I said, man, it is hard to pick this class. Every lineup is good. Every team is good. I think I'm going to go the Cadillac route to start with, primarily because there's only one Mazda. That car has the reputation, and I think, frankly, a bit deserved, of struggling in the long-distance races. They did break through and win at Sebring, but one car did break down. So that is something to keep in mind. And again, just one bullet in the gun for Mazda here this year, which is a departure from years past. On the flip side, you've got Acura, which is a proven package, good over the long-distance races. Didn't have a ton of success here with Team Penske, but now 2 different teams running, and I think that's the rub. I'm a little bit concerned about 2 teams that do not have a lot of running with this car, being the 2 arrows in the quiver for Acura. Wayne Taylor Racing needs no introduction. We talked about it. They've won the last 2 overall, but that said, they've only got a little bit of testing done before they got here, a day or 2 at Sebring, then the Roar, and now this. So that's not much time to learn the car, as good as the driver lineup undoubtedly is. And same for Meyer Shank Racing. This is a team with prototype pedigree, but it's been a while. And again, not a whole lot of running with the ARX-05. So for those reasons, plus the fact that Cadillac has dominated this event in the DPI era, plus the renowned reliability of the Cadillac, and the teams running them are excellent too. Driver lineups are just as good as you would see from Mazda or Acura. I think if you look at the Cadillac camp, this is where everything is pointing at this point. And now it's a matter of trying to wheedle it down, and it's a hard task. I'm going to go with the Chip Ganassi Racing car as my pick to win. The biggest concern I have there is not the speed of Kevin Magnussen, but the fact that he is new to this type of racing, these long-distance races, dealing with traffic. All it takes is one misjudgment, one lapse on his part behind the wheel, or any of the drivers for that matter. But for someone who has not got a lot of experience in multi-class racing and long-distance endurance racing, it does concern me a little bit. But I think he'll be a quick study. He knows endurance racing from the outside, at least from following his father's career, and you pair him with Renger van der Zande, who's a steady set of hands, knows the car incredibly well, and Scott Dixon, who needs no introduction. I think Chip Ganassi gets it done, despite the fact that they too do not have a ton of experience with this chassis. They've been very impressive in the build-up to the race thus far. LMP2. PR1 Matheson is my pick. Ben Keating, Mikkel Jensen, Scott Huffaker, and Nico LaPierre, who is absolutely magic in an LMP2 car. Probably the best bronze in any class that we have here in Ben Keating. He is pulling double duty, and that is a point of concern to some degree, but I think they've got a strategy. They have a plan. That team is sharp. They know what they're doing. Certainly the reigning champions in IMSA, going back to last year in LMP2. Good driver lineup. That's my pick. LMP3, I think there are 3 different places you can look. You've got Riley Motorsports, Core Autosport, and Mueller Motorsport. And 2 of those are more familiar to U.S. fans than the other. And I'd say my biggest concern with Core is the fact that they don't have a ton of experience with this LMP3 car. Now, Riley does, but maybe not as much as Mueller. And I'm going to go with Mueller for the win here, but I do think it is between the 91 Riley, Ligier, Jim Cox, Dylan Murray, Austin McCusker, and Jerome Bleekemolen. Another fantastic lineup. It's amazing. It's an LMP3 lineup. And then Mueller Motorsports, which again is my pick here with their Duquesne. Moritz Kranz, Lawrence Hare, they've already won a race here in the last couple of weeks. They won the Prototype Challenge race in an identical car, and they're part of this driver lineup as well. Pair them with a former class winner of the Rolex 24, Kenton Cook, and Stephen McAleer making his Rolex 24 debut, but a very fast driver with LMP3 experience. I think that they are the pick to win, but expect high attrition in that class. GT Le Mans. I think this is a Ferrari year. It always seems like the BOP for them is way up here or way down here, and you never know what it's going to be because we don't have a full season Ferrari. But it does seem like they are right there on pace. My biggest concern is there's only one of them, but I do think Risi can get it done. BMW got pegged back a little bit in the BOP. They've won the last 2, like I said before. It just feels like maybe it's going to break against them here this time. Corvette, I think, would be a safe bet as well, but they've only done one 24-hour race so far, and they did have some mechanical issues along the way. Usually by year 2 of the program, they would have had Daytona and Le Mans to get ironed out for a 24-hour race, but obviously no Le Mans for Corvette last year, so we're going into the unknown to a certain extent here for them. It would not surprise me if they run flawlessly and get the win, but I do think that question mark is worth noting, and for that reason, plus the driver lineup of Risi is good. It's a proven team despite not being a full-time team. Risi is my pick to win this race. Finally, GT Daytona. I think it's a Lexus year for that class. Vassar Sullivan running the team now on their own, getting rid of the AIM Autosport partnership that they carried for the last year. It just seems like the Lexus is due. They've been very good elsewhere, but this has not been a great place for them. It just never seemed like the BOP quite was in their favor, but it seems like it might be this time. Looking at the practice times combined, aggregated through all the running here of Rolex 24 week, of the top 10 driver times in GT Daytona, 4 of them were set by Lexus drivers. So the car is quick. The reliability is there. It's a proven package at this point. The team seems sharp. It seems like it's their time to break through. And I think the edge goes to the number 14 entry because Aaron Tiewitz, Ollie Gavin, Kyle Kirkwood, and Jack Hawksworth have more experience in long-distance racing than the sister car, Zach Veach making his GT debut. Robert McGuinness has done, to my knowledge, 1 GT race before. That was the Indianapolis 8-hour last year. Townsend Bell, Frankie Montecalvo have a ton of experience, but Zach and Robert are going to be learning on the fly. First 24-hour race for both of them. And I'm not sure that they're quite ready to break through, but it wouldn't be a total surprise there either. Nevertheless, I think the number 14 is the pick to win. Tiewitz, Gavin, Kirkwood, and Hawksworth. Those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours. Send them in the comments below. Send them at me at Ryan Marine on Twitter or Instagram as well. I might try and do something in the middle of the night, too. Maybe go live or something like that from the media center if it clears out. I'm not entirely sure what I'm planning for that, but certainly I'll be active on social media. You can check out all the stories up at Sportscar 365, who I'm writing for this weekend as well, and I look forward to talking to you after the race wraps up. I'm sure we'll do something else like this at some point in the next week. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you after, or maybe during, the Rolex 24.